What's going on? What's going on out there in the world? This is your favorite not hater, Mr. BROWN, Mr. Brown, once again with another episode. Sticking to the music genres and all that, music platforms and projects that I wanted to talk about this go around. To kind of wrap up the year a little bit, but sticking with that, right? We're gonna be talking about producers. And hip hop, R&B. That's what I know, so that's what I'm gonna talk about. Obviously, always the GOAT of producers in my book is Quincy Jones, right? So Quincy Jones is the GOAT. He kind of set the standard for everybody that came after him. But there's some producers around the, you know, late 80s, 90s, 2000s that has some incredible runs. Just kind of mention them, give a little backstory, at least from my opinion, right? Um, and then I'll kind of pick like who's that next, um, next goat or the goats, I should say, or even why if we should even have goats or producers. Everybody, kind of got their own lanes, kind of got their own styles, and like I said, everybody had their specific runs during the time period that I'm be focusing on. Everybody had a run where, they were that guy, they were that person on top as far as production goes. So I'm gonna start with Teddy Riley. Okay, so New Jack Swing, so 1988 till about I say like 95. Teddy Riley was everywhere. He had multiple groups, so he had Guy and Blackstreet, who he produced. Like I said, multiple hits. Rex and Effects, when he was a rapper. Um, he did work with Michael Jackson, Bobby Brown, Keith Sweat, just to name a few artists. But like I said, he was the guy for the New Jack Swing sound. It was that hard thumping R&B sound um, that he created, and he even produced the show for Dougie Fresh and Slick Rick. So like, Teddy Riley is one of those people where if you don't pay attention to music on a whole or underneath, like new school people wouldn't really know Teddy Riley. Like you really gotta dig. Nowadays, you gotta dig in the crates to find out, Teddy Riley Productions. But I'll give you like one, like No Diggity from Blackstreet. That's a Teddy Riley production. Like I said, Blackstreet, he did probably every album they ever had. Guy, if you know Guy, I like, Piece of My Love, you know, countless hits from Guy. Like I said, Bobby Brown, he did Don't Be Cruel. He did My Prerogative from the Don't Be Cruel album. Um, he did work with Michael Jackson on the Dangerous album. So he stepped in after Quincy Jones and Mike kind of stopped working together. He stepped in to pick up the mantle and help produce Michael Jackson. So he had to be dope if he was helping to produce Michael Jackson, right? Mike wasn't just working with nobody who wasn't the man on the production side, right? So Teddy Riley be first up. He had a good run. Like I said, from like 88 to 95. Um, but time moves on, and then other people start picking it up. Now, within that time frame, you had Dr. Dre, West Coast producer, who was you know he had started making his sound during that time too, producing NWA and Easy E, DOC. All the Ruthless acts got beats from Dre. And then when Dre left Ruthless and went to Death Row, he produced The Chronic, Doggy Style for Snoop Dogg, and countless other production albums. Dre did it all and still does it all to this day. Like he's still producing at a high volume. It did come out like later on that he had like other producers working with him and doing little, keyboard parts and things like that. But it don't take away from the legend of Dr. Dre already, right? So just because he has somebody, helping him out, like okay, cool, but that just showed his genius that he had people lined up wanting to work with him, wanting to be with him. He still is one of the legendary producers of his day. And like I said, he's still going even right now. And don't sleep, like Teddy Riley is too. It may not be high profile stuff like, in his heyday, but he's still producing, man. Don't ever sleep. These producers don't stop. making tracks just because they're not on a large scale. They still make music no matter what. And Dre is one of those people. Like it take him a while. It take him, he's a perfectionist, so it take him a long time to do it. But once it come out, man, it's classic Dre. He had a West Coast sound, infused with like funk. So he got disciples like Daz, Warren G, um, Mailman, Scott Storch. He has a stable of people that came, from underneath his tutelage, to say, and kind of making the same music, same type of music that he was making. Shout out to Dr. Dre, still going. Um, I'm gonna go Jermaine Dupri next, right? ATL's own Jermaine Dupri. Now, Jermaine Dupri is a complex piece of a producer, right? Because Jermaine not only does beats, but Jermaine also writes songs. So that's what Teddy Riley did too. But Jermaine Dupri, he once he got with Mariah Carey, they start cooking up hit after hit after hit. And then he got with Usher, and it was the same thing. So he don't get a lot of credit from people. Like he's not on a lot of people's, you know, top 10, top 20 producer list. But for me, like putting the whole record together from start to finish with including the lyrics, like JD got to be near the top. JD done had, everybody from Escape to Bow Wow, Jagged Edge, the Brat. That just shows you his diversity right there. Like he produced a female R&B group, a male R&B group, a kid rapper, a female rapper, um, Usher, right? Countless records with Usher, Confessions, classic record. Like I said, Jermaine Dupri is, he's slept on by the mainstream to a point, but you gotta give him his flowers, man. The man, he done put in a 30-year career of hits, and that's unheard of, right? You don't really get that from many producers. Maybe like a 5 to 10 year run, but he's consistent. In every decade, he's got 2 to 3 hits, and that's just like I said, something unheard of. And not many people, and he's done solo albums, right? So he did Life in 1472, his solo album with, it was kind of like his answer to Puffy at the time, who had No Way Out, and Dre, I would say, with The Chronic, where it had like, guest rappers and singers all over it. But it was a dope album, in my opinion. But JD, like I said, consistently makes these type of records, and it's not to be ignored. He definitely does his thing. Next, I would say Pharrell, but I'm gonna say the Neptunes. So when I got wind of the Neptunes, it might have been around 2003, when I first heard a Neptune beat, and it was weird. Like it had all these ooh, 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 that they had that sound. It was a different sound, but these two dudes were like as different as they come. But they drum patterns and everything else was very, it was different. But Chad and Pharrell, man, they made some classic music. Too, they've worked with everybody. You name them, they've worked with them. Even they tried to work with them. They tried to work with Michael Jackson. They tried to work with Prince, but they got hits with Jay-Z, Usher. Like I said, you name it, they worked with them. Neptune's got to be up there too, just because of what they brought to the game. They brought a fresh new sound at the time to the music game, and a lot of people tried to duplicate it, tried to make it their own type of sound, but it wasn't, it just didn't go right. Like Chad and Pharrell definitely had a sound that was all their own, and they got to be respected for it. They put VA, they continued to put VA in the map, right? Because them, along with Teddy Riley, who was one of the first, then you had Timbaland, who I'm gonna talk about next. You had Timbaland, and then you had the Neptunes. Like those three represent VA as far as production goes, right? And they do a pretty good job. Now Timbaland, he to me is one of the he got to be one of the goats. He got to be up there at the top. Just because, again, he was another fresh new sound when he came in at like 97. It was like when he first really splashed, like 97, 98. He came from the Devontae Swing camp. Now, if you don't know who Devontae Swing is from Jodeci. And Devontae, so getting back to it, right? Devontae Swing is from Jodeci. Devontae Swing had a camp of producers, writers, and singers, and from this camp, right, you got Missy Elliott, Timbaland, Genuine, Magoo, rest in peace to Magoo, Timbaland and Magoo, Fame, um, and a bunch of others. But those four acts came from that camp. And Timbaland being the producer, man, he when he came in, it was like, who is this and what is he doing with this music? But it was dope, man, because it was like baby sounds and you know giraffes and all kind of stuff over drums, and it was like, yo, this never been done before. But like I said, it was dope. Like you never heard that before. East Coast music had like it bop to it. Backpack boom bap. That kind of thing. It had that with it. But Timberland was different. He experimented with different sounds. And it was ahead of its time. It was like futuristic almost, but it made you like sit there and listen to the beat along with everything else that was going on with the lyrics. Man, he did some classic joints, Big Pimpin', Dirt Off Your Shoulders. I'm just naming Jay-Z songs. But yeah, Timbaland, man, he gotta be up there. If you don't have Timbaland in your like top 5, he's still going too. He's another one still going right now. If you don't got Timbaland in your top 5, you're not paying attention to production. And if you claim to be in this music thing and you listening to all types of producers, Timbaland got to be in your top 5 when it comes to hip hop production from that golden era. I won't say now, because now for the kids it's a little bit different. But back when we was kids, like the 30 and up crew, Timbaland had to be in your top 5 as a producer for sure. Now I'm gonna name a couple more, right? And then I'll get into like a different type of production, different type of producer. So Just Blaze, again, Just Blaze, crazy run with Rockefeller, and he's still going today too. He also has a podcast out, so if you haven't seen it, tune in. Just be talking about, he tells his stories from the baseline days, but just I love to hear the drop when he go Just Blaze. Man, he got some hits, okay. And it was like soul samples, heavy drums. It was that rock. It was a Rockefeller sound. That was their sound. It was like soul samples with heavy drums, sped up. Um, intricate keyboard patterns, right? All that. They was working. Him, sorry, Kanye, Chad West, um, like the house that Rockefeller built. He definitely was part of that, that team, and they definitely put in a lot of work over that time period. But Just was, he was one of them ones, man. When you heard that drop, like I said, when you heard that drop, you knew it was gonna be a classic. You know, and like Kanye when he first came out, again, soul samples, drum patterns. Kanye was dope. He definitely gave a new sound to Rockefeller at the time, and again, that's why they brought him in. That's why they had him as a producer first, and then later on they let him become an artist. But they definitely wanted them beats, because them soul samples, he was killing it with the soul samples. And it set up a competition, like a Just Blaze versus Kanye. I bet if somebody right now, and my boy D-Rock probably could put together a whole mixtape with Just Blaze and Kanye. Just Blaze versus Kanye for sure. I definitely. I mean, I probably could too put a playlist together, but that would be a dope one because they had some classics on Rockefeller for sure. Um, and like I said, I'm gonna get to like a different type of production. So a lot of people don't want to give him credit, or we don't want to speak his name these days because of what's going on in the news. But I'm gonna talk about Diddy for a sec. So he's not your usual producer, right? He had a team of producers called the Hitmen who made the tracks, and Puff would kind of come in and say, change this beat, or change this drum, take that out, put this in. But he was credited as a producer. Puff was, they said he was nice on the boards as a mixing type of engineer type stuff. But Puff was a conceptual producer, I like to say, because in my opinion, before he got the Bad Boy and before he became a solo artist, he put together many, many, many classic R&B albums. I always say like Puff first album with a person be their best work. I don't know if he like put all his blood, sweat, and tears into their first albums, but if I run it down, right? If I run it down, you'll tend to agree, right? So if I say Mary J. Blige first album was 411 classic, okay? Now fast forward to the Bad Boy days. Ready to Die, classic. Biggie's first album. 112, 112, highly regarded as a classic R&B album. Carl Thomas, Emotional, classic R&B album. I didn't give you like 3 or 4 examples. Um, Puff conceptually put those projects together, and he did a wonderful job, masterful job. Puff was part of the Jodeci wave. He was at Uptown first before Bad Boy, so Jodeci first album. Look at it, classic. Um, Puff was that guy. He had the Midas touch for a long, long time. Um, you know, but his Midas touch turns to like after they, second album and such, it don't really go so well. But those first albums that I mentioned, like those were classic joints, and he definitely executive produced and had his hand in them. But if I had to choose like who I would have join Quincy Jones at the top of that GOAT pantheon of producers, definitely gotta have Quincy Jones, Dr. Dre. I'm gonna have Jermaine Dupri up there just for what he did for the city of Atlanta and the music scene, period. And then I'm gonna have I can't deny it, like for what Diddy was doing for New York at that, in that time period, Diddy gotta be at the top. He's a a figure with plenty problems now, but prior to that, man, the music he was a part of and had a hand in creating, it was some of the best music you'd ever heard. So I gotta put him up there. He's the fourth, with Pharrell and Kanye and Timbaland all being in the fifth slot. But as you know, Mount Rushmore's only have 4 slots, so that's my 4. Quincy Jones at the top, Dr. Dre, Jermaine Dupri, and then Diddy. And if you want to take him out and put Timbaland in there, whatever your taste is, like you can make your own Mount Rushmore's producers. It's not just limited to what I say. What I say isn't law. I'm just on here talking because I like talking about music and producing and production. It is what it is. This is another I'm Not a Hater podcast episode, music wise, talking about production and producers and giving you my producing GOAT list. Peace and love. I appreciate y'all listening. To those that's tuning in, continue to tune in, man. We're gonna talk about this music thing, these music topics for a while. I appreciate everybody who's been listening, following, subscribing. Appreciate it all. Peace and love. I'm out.